Let's take a moment to reflect once again about the time and life of former and late President Muhammadu Buhari. We begin in Katsina, where we have our correspondent Jamil Mabai. He followed the funeral events and he joins us live now to deepen the conversation. We're also joined in studio by Ikechukwu Amaechi, editor-in-chief of The Niche, whose recent article titled Buhari and Nigeria's Crass Elite Class has sparked conversation about the political class and the man they revered. Also joining us is Dr. Bashir Kurfi, a respected economist, public affairs analyst, and one of President Buhari's longtime admirers. Now, first off, Jamil, let's come to you. You attended the Fidau prayer and you saw the local outpouring of emotions. How is Buhari being remembered, especially from that location where he was finally laid to rest? Jamil, that would be you.
Yes, I can hear you. I had the opportunity to, for the first time, to witness firsthand what President Buhari really meant to the people of Daura and the people of Katsina and Nigeria as a whole. Right from the moment the announcement was made of his demise, the people of Daura began to gather in a square in front of the Emirate Council, and they were crying, and some of them, were just, you can see the grief and pain in their faces. But mostly from the discussion I had with the people there, they remember him for his simplicity, for how he has, always, nurtured that relationship with the people of Daura, especially with some of his friends and who are still in Daura. There was this man in particular that I interviewed. He recalled how even after Buhari came back, after he finished his tenure as president, he was in Daura. He came to his house personally, not once, not twice. But beyond that, the people of Daura are particularly happy. One, he was able to bring the University of Transport to Daura. He was able to bring under his leadership a polytechnic. So a polytechnic was established in Daura. We have the presence of Air Force base. Air Force base was stationed also in Daura, and another battalion from the Nigerian Army was stationed. And there are a lot of infrastructure in terms of road networks that were constructed. It's very vivid. You can see that. Even though, some people, hold the opinion that Daura, given the fact that it's not one of the regions battling insecurity, the battalion and the Air Force, that were stationed in Daura or were created should have gone to the south of Katsina South, where insecurity is happening. But this is one of the major reasons I think the people of Daura loved Buhari so much, and these legacies will still remain now that he's gone. At least they can look at this infrastructure, the security infrastructure, the educational infrastructure, and say, yes, our son has indeed did something for us here in Daura. But, across away from Daura, maybe when you come down to Katsina and other states, the opinion, there is a divergent opinion on who Muhammadu Buhari is in terms of his legacy and what have you. Like in the southern part of Katsina state, they are not so happy with how the leadership of the president gone down, because under his leadership, almost 300 students were abducted by banditry in Katsina at a time when the president was also visiting Katsina State. And under his leadership, we've seen how bandits attack schools after schools that led to the closure of so many schools in northwest Nigeria, spanning from Katsina down to Zamfara, Sokoto, Kebbi, down to Niger, then extends to Kaduna, with all their experiences when it comes to kidnapping. So, I've always said, for the people of Daura, they see him as a leader, as a son, as a father, who loved his local government, who loved the people of Daura. But the other part of Katsina State will always see him also as a leader, but not as a leader that delivered, based on the mandate he promised when he assumed into office.
Jamil, many thanks. Now, what's interesting about this is that as much as the residents and the residents of Katsina and also Daura see Buhari as, an admirable individual and also someone they look up to and a true son of the soil, the reaction that has followed his death and also the opinions about him has been very diverse since his passing July 13th. Now, we have a cross-section of reaction from respondents across Nigeria. We're going to roll that, and then from there, here in the studio, we will come to Mr. Amaechi, where I'll ask him about his very, very I don't have the right adjective to describe his article, but first, let's run those opinions first. Unfortunately, I don't think we can bring you that for now. Unfortunately, we can't bring you that. Let me just come into the studio, right? So again, just a major criticism that was seen. The very first one, poor communication and absenteeism, human rights violation, unemployment surge, worsening insecurity, economic mismanagement. The list is, this was one of the top 5 that they have, talked about, major criticism for President Muhammadu Buhari's term, not only as president, a democratically elected president twice, but also when he was a general leader, a military leader leading the country. Let me come to you, Mr. Amaechi. In your article, you didn't mince words at all. You argue that Buhari was more of an enabler of elite dysfunction than a reformer. Can you expand on that thesis for our viewers?
You see, again, let me start by expressing my my condolences. Every death diminishes all of us as human beings. Buhari was first and foremost a human being before being a president. So he was a husband, a father, and all that. And yes, he lived long enough, 82 years, in a country where the life longevity period is about 55 years averagely. He lived long enough at 82. But even if he had lived up to 200 years, people will still miss him because that's the nature of life itself. So my condolences. And of course, there are, like Jamil explained, there are people from Daura, and he also had his friends who are going to miss him. But that said, you know, when I read some of the tributes that are being paid every day, particularly by Nigerian politicians, Buhari loved Nigeria deeply. Buhari was the best thing that happened to Nigeria. I asked myself, are they really talking about former President Muhammadu Buhari or anyone else? And if the dead could see and hear what we say, I'm sure Buhari will be pitching himself wherever he is now and asking, are these people really talking about me? Because, look, we say don't talk ill
of the dead.
Of the dead. But I think part of talking ill of the dead is to lie against the dead. And when you say something that somebody was not, I think that amounts to lying. Some of the tributes that have been paid to former President Muhammadu Buhari, late, of blessed memory now, they are sheer lies.
So you think that the encomiums that was poured on him during the extended FAC meeting that had all the Federal Executive Council, both the leadership of the House of Representatives and the Senate and all the ministers and governors in attendance, every single person who paid tribute to him lied?
how could they be pouring all those encomiums on the man? Don't forget, Nigeria became independent 65 years ago. By October 1st, it will be 65 years. October 1st, 1960. So this will be 65 years of our independence. Out of those 65 years, Muhammadu Buhari ruled or governed this country, if you like, for 9 years and 8 months. He was military head of state for 20 months and was a civilian president for 8 years. The 20 months, a year and 8 months. So 9 years and 8 months, only one man. The only other person that has broken that record is former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Former military president Ibrahim Babangida was there for 8 years. So this man has dominated the political space, the leadership space for so long. And you ask yourself, what impact did he make? Okay, even if we take away the 20 months of his military dictatorship and concentrate on the 8 years, 2015 to 2023, what did he achieve? Even President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is pouring all the encomiums, his government, even himself and members of his cabinet, they have said that they inherited an economy that is almost dead.
Mr. Michi, I understand what you're trying to say. I also read that article. I found it very interesting. The fact that you condemned Nigeria's elite's response to his death, the posthumous praise that was being pushed in there without noting the concerns of many Nigerians. So I'm very aware of that. But let me turn to Dr. Kurfi here. Dr. Bashir Kurfi, now how do we attend to such a situation where, while we want to empathize with the friends and family of the late president, and of course, to the great deal, most of the Nigerian population, but yet still focus on some of the ills that we find ourselves currently today, where can we find that balance? Because many people have argued about the details that we gave regarding the lapses, his lack of political will, the structure of certain sectors in Nigeria. How do we balance this?
Well, thank you very much for having me. Number one, I want to extend my deeply condolence to General Buhari's family and those who are also connected with him. And also, it's a personal loss for me. It's somebody whom we have been very close. At a certain time, if you are talking of 5 people that are close to him in this country, I'm one of them. And I'm not a mere admirer of General Buhari. In fact, in the Buhari movement, I was the director of research documenting strategy. And you can hear me. Yeah. Hello? Hello?
Loud and clear.
Hello?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, we can.
Okay, fine. So now when we started the movement, so I'm not a mere admirer, you know. I am one of the people who was involved in various meetings, even in terms of this alliance which we have with Tinubu. So, but the issue is, we made Buhari into a political fraud that becomes helpful with the Nigerian state. But the issue now, what I found in Nigerian situation, very ridiculous. You know, this economy, this discussion that he has integrity, I don't think that is the issue. The issue, Nigerian people elected him into office for certain purposes, that he will address the issue of the Nigerian crisis and the contradiction of the Nigerian economic system and the overall dependency on the international capital. So it should be on that basis that you evaluate a political leader, not in his personality or his ability. You are voted into the Nigerian presidency to do certain things, and we have political agenda, you have manifesto of your party. So the issue people should weigh what happened to the manifesto of the party, what were his plan, what were campaign promises. And in the campaign promises that we did to the people at that time, was that economy, security, and economic prosperity. Now, when you look at these things, you weigh them. As an academic, I have been in Ahmadu Bello University as a lecturer for 40 years. And my area of specialization is international business and finance. So I understand economics in its original Hebrew. The fact of the matter, if you take the starting point, because when people are investing in your country, the first thing they will look at is the security of their investment, and also the easiness of return of their investments in their country. But basically, during the period of Buhari, the security system in Nigeria totally collapsed. He was, as your reporter said, he was in Daura, in his own village in Katsina State. I'm from Katsina State. I was also in Katsina State when this secondary school kids, about 300 of them were kidnapped. And those kids, they stayed for months. They were only rescued when ransom was paid, as it was alleged. So you see, there is a problem when a child cannot go to school. And I can effectively tell you, as a day.
Now, Dr. Bashir Kurfi.
Of Nigeria,
Doctor.
60% of the
Dr. Bashir Kurfi.
is on state.
Just a second, sir. And if you can if you can summarize this answer here, so how would you say he fared based on the factors that you have related to us as a leader? Do you say he fared good or bad?
This is very clear. There was, as a teacher, I know, there is massive unemployment. There is no security. You know, the Naira have crashed. And there is no certainty and frustration in the face of Nigerians. Hunger is all over the country. So how do you say that he succeeded or whatever?
Situation, sir.
I can tell you, to my own assessment,
yes,
in the world history, I have never seen a president that destroyed his country for 8 years, like Buhari.
All right, sir.
Thank you. Mabai, I'm going to come to you first, but I'm just going to quote you, paraphrase you earlier about how the divide we're seeing in the passing of the reaction, the mixed reaction we're seeing in the passing of President Muhammadu Buhari is not just in the southeast or southwest, but also in the north as well. And it seems that the north is also displeased at the end. But he garnered 12 million votes, and out of that 12 million, about 8.5 of that was from the north. 3.5 of that was from the southwest. And somehow he campaigned on the anti-corruption as platform. While some supporters have said that he was steadfast and he had austere measures and he was not flamboyant, corruption still persisted. And that 8.5 votes have now, those 8.5 voters in that number have been displeasured by his 8 years and said he didn't do enough for the North and he impoverished the North. Mabai, why do you think that argument is true, that out of the 8.5 million who voted for him, he impoverished the North? How you've been in Katsina, 8 years, you saw it firsthand. What's your response to that before I come to Mr. Amaechi to have a stake?
Okay, are you referring to me?
Jamil Mabai.
First, you have to look at the infrastructure first. Let me give you, for instance, when you look at the Abuja-Kano expressway, that was started under the administration of President Buhari is yet to see the light of the day. In Katsina, when you look at the Charini wind energy mill, that was that every year in, year out, the Buhari government budgeted for its completion. It's still
Mabai there. Mr. Amaechi, before we bring Mabai on, I also have to ask you as well. You said that, I'm trying to quote you here, that you think that Buhari's legacy is a long arc of Nigerian political space, that people are pointing to his integrity and austere lifestyle as virtues, but in your assessment, you said that it's a contrast to his actual governance outcomes. In what way?
It is simple. Like Dr. Kurfi said, look, when APC came into office in 2015, the party had a manifesto, which even President Muhammadu Buhari then distilled into 3 main specific issues. He said he was going to fight corruption. He said he was going to grow the economy, and he said he was going to fight insecurity. If we leave every other thing and assess him based on the things he told us he was going to do, which one of them do you think he excelled in? Like I was saying before, the economy is just dead, literally. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said that several times. Now, in terms of fighting corruption, how can you say, or how can anybody in good conscience say that the government of Muhammadu Buhari fought corruption? Yes, people say as a person he's incorruptible, maybe, but what kind of man is so much upright, but every other person around you had question marks on their distance? Don't forget, look at all the revelations coming out of NNPC now. Look at the issue of the central bank. Don't also forget that Muhammadu Buhari was Minister of Petroleum for 8 years. So Mele Kyari and all those people who mismanaged
were answerable to him.
We spent $18 billion, for crying out loud, fixing moribund refineries. The Senate said the other day that they are probing over 200 trillion naira that went down the drain, that could not be accounted for by any NPC under this man's watch. The only thing that is making this not as big as it is because Muhammadu Buhari was succeeded by Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is a member of the APC. If any other person
on any other party
had succeeded Buhari like they did in 2015,
his flaws would have been evident.
We'll most likely not see a state's burial like this.
Let's look at another lack of reform that many people argue during his tenure as president. Let's talk about healthcare. He died in a London hospital. His record is that he spent over 230 days outside of Nigeria on for medical reasons. He also came in as president under the basis that he was going to reform the Nigerian healthcare system. That didn't happen. However, you also in your article highlighted the lack of reform in this sector, but given the weak institutions that he inherited as a president from the past administration before him, was there any room for real transformation? Was it an 8-year task for him to absolutely reform healthcare in Nigeria?
Look, I feel sad when people cut Buhari some slacks, particularly in the issue of healthcare delivery. You're asking me if a man who was in office for 8 years could have carried out some significant reforms in the healthcare. Look, enlightened self-interest should have told Buhari, who had pre-existing health conditions before he came into office, that even if the only thing he succeeded in doing was to build a world-class medical facility where he could be attended to. I read somebody sent me a post on WhatsApp the other day, which, if you ask me, was a joke, but it made a whole lot of sense. A Nigerian was telling a colleague of his in London that our president died in a London hospital 3 days ago. And the white man asked him, was he on exile? And the man said no. He said, and why did he die here? He said that is where he could get good medical treatment. And the man looked at him and said, it then means your colleges, your universities are better than your hospitals. And the Nigerian asked him, how do you mean? He said, because all the medical doctors here are Nigerians. Most of them trained back home in Nigeria. So how come? Look, the irony of this whole nonsense is that when these guys travel abroad, they are treated by Nigerians. They get so the problem is not the lack of expertise or the lack of manpower. The problem is that the leaders have refused to invest.
Yeah. Mr. Amaechi, just a second. I'm sure Judith has a question for
Bashir. Mr. Bashir, I got to ask you, you are an economist, right? And you have seen just how critics have argued that his 8 years plunged Nigeria into the economic downturn that we're experiencing now, that the effects of those 8 years is what Nigerians are going through, from the closure of the border to the Naira, pegging the Naira, to everything else, all the measures that he implemented. What's your response to that? Very quickly, because we're out of time.
Yeah, it's very clear. You know, the level, you see, you can say that, okay, you are assent in whatever you do, but when you are given a position of leadership, your responsibility is to secure competent people that will run the system. And which, in the case of Muhammadu Buhari, regime, and of course, the extension this regime, most of the people who are supposed to move the economy or to move the system, the Nigerians, they are so incompetent. Thereby, you don't expect positive results. And I always don't agree when they say that he's a good leader, but he is surrounded by bad people. That is ultra nonsense. As a leader, is your capacity to assemble a quality team to achieve organizational goals. So in this case, when you look at the level of unemployment, as a teacher, I know you will meet some of my ex-students that have been there for more than 5 years, getting to 10 years unemployed after they have gotten their degree. And it has never happened in the history of Nigeria, not until during his regime, that employment offers were so in the open market. You know, and then when you look at what like Mr. How percent you don't have even basic medical care in your country? The universities are basically in shambles. As there is no professor in Nigeria that earns 500,000 naira a month. How do you run a system like this? And when you look at when they even say on this anti-corruption pedals, as at now, there are many Buhari's ministers who are before the EFCC. Some of them are in court. So how can you be a leader and you cannot be able to observe somebody is shortchanging the country? So I think it is important. We have to be a little sincere. Not when you are doing all this kind of jamboree, everybody is. A lot of people, I find Nigeria very funny. A lot of people whom they call to speak on Buhari, they never stay with Buhari. I have been with Buhari for some time. I have traveled all over the world on political events. So, but you see, you are appointed spokesman of Buhari when you are he's in government. How do you know? How do you know even what he is? How do you know his psychology? But the fact of the matter, which is a fact, the country has been derailed to the level which is unpredictable when Buhari has left. And what I have seen, this regime, which they have to be very careful because they are seeing themselves as an extension. And by the way, if you look at now, you say, yeah, Buhari have this vote, he has this vote. Yes, because that time, the common, not only in the north, because, you know, I didn't get dragged into sectional or whatever politics. I'm a public intellectual. So look at them passionately. You know, people assume that when this man comes into office, he will be able to address the Nigerian problem.
All right, Dr. Bashir, just a second. We've been trying to get your attention because we really are running out of time. But I have one more question for Mr. Amaechi here, and it's about, well, it's your sector, the education sector. And you also noted that inside of your article, you talked about the Nigerian education system and how it, you know, kind of like devolved during that period. But however, my question now is regarding the current educational system. Do you think that it actually equips students or young Nigerians with the ability to query the elite lifestyle, the failures of the elite political class, crass political class like you called it? Or does it simply just make them obedient and aspire to want to be a part of that broken system?
Everything is wrong with what we have in Nigeria now. People are no longer brought up to have this ability to think, to criticize, to look at issues the way they are. You know, when, again, let me go back to what all these things. Okay, let's now take, for instance, President Tinubu has renamed University of Maiduguri to Muhammadu Buhari University. And you ask yourself, on what basis did he do that?
Now, he was an empathetic leader, and empathy seems to be at the core of everything Buhari did. He didn't want the people to suffer, so he was very, very slow when he had to take hard-line political decisions.
Buhari,
Was he slow, or was he just...
And plus, there's the argument that he surrounded himself.
Buhari was never an empathetic leader. The Buhari that people know is a man who didn't care about any other person.
I remember the fight against indiscipline in the 70s during his 20-month rule as military.
Buhari was about Buhari.
Yeah.
Buhari never cared a hoot about any other person. Never cared a hoot about any other person. Those who work with him. I am close to some ministers now who work with him. When you speak with them,
But that's very different from what Mabai tells us about Daura and how he has really turned what that place looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean by empathy. I know you're about to say that's just Daura, that's just his own hometown. But then if you speak about him just for himself, then let's take a look at that as a sample of his efforts.
Buhari was president of Nigeria for crying
out loud.
Out loud. Daura, what's the population of Daura?
Just a second. I think Dr. Bashir wanted to say something regarding that. Dr. Bashir, we caught your gesture there.
Yes, please. When people talk of this Daura, Daura is one of the poorest areas in this country. And when you go to Daura as of today, yes, there are some few mentions, roads, but every development in Daura, big houses, big farms, and all are associated with Buhari and his relation, not to the common man of Daura. And you see, this like issue of this Maiduguri, as somebody coming from an academic background, I think it's totally wrong for the president to rename a university just like. Number one, we have university autonomy in Nigeria. We are the only set in the country that we appoint our vice chancellor through our internal mechanism without the approval of the president. We will even announce it in the council. So the president have no power to rename a university. And in any case, how do you rename a university? You mean all those who graduated with the certificate of University of Maiduguri, you say University of Muhammadu Buhari University, former University of Maiduguri. This is not, and I believe the ASU should reject it, and also the alumni of Maiduguri should not accept. It happened to the University of Lagos. The first person who spoke was the president of alumni. He said that, I can quote him, he said that it's easier to dry the waters of Lagos than to change the name of the University of Lagos. Can you imagine somebody who is used to Unilag and you come and say Mashoda and Viola University?
Doctor, all right, Doctor, we do have to wrap it here. But what's very interesting, and I wish there was enough time, is the fact that he continued to repeat the same policies that he used in his during his 20-month rule as a military leader. Closing of the border, he did the same thing. Pegging the naira, he did the same thing. Almost trying the same thing that failed consistently. And that's one thing I wish we had enough time to discuss. But we have to draw the curtains here. I want to say thank you to you, Mr. Amaechi, for taking out the time to join us. And a stellar article there just pointing out, you know, his administration, no holds bar, just as it is. And also to you as well, Dr. Kurfi, who is an economist. And also to Jamil Mabai, thank you for being patient with us. We appreciate you.